Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. My name is Scott Morgan. We're out the Motor City Madmouth. What a great crew today. We can divide it up in quarters here because there are four of us. And I'm actually wearing a hat called Diesel Life. Excuse me, because I'm going to be dieseling over to Homestead Miami Speedway over the weekend covering the Dixie vodka or vodka Dixie 400 out in home. Oh, what's the difference? It's all alcohol and it's going to be fun over the weekend, even though I won't be drinking any of it anyways. But anyways, please have my Thursday night crew, Steve Balusteri. Welcome back to the big show, Steve.
It's a pleasure to be here. I always look forward to it all week long.
Oh, me too. You guys are the best. Mel Farr Jr. We'll be giving him a lot of rocks today. Welcome back to the big show, Mel.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
yeah, that is dedicated to one of the colors. Okay, so we're gonna have some fun with the thing, even though that's the only you're getting.
Oh boy, that was a good night.
Oh, we're cruel. We are cruel. And Jennifer Lewis, the professional fan. Professional. I like the PUR.
You got to keep Sir Purr in there, baby.
There you go. All right. Well, we have some pretty good topics tonight. Oh, we got tonight, man. And no, I don't have the alcohol, so don't worry. I've just had some pretty good stuff there. But NASCAR, I do want to give you guys a little overview of the trouble I've gotten into all week, though, before we go into football. I had an opportunity to do a one-on-one interview with Al Garcia, the track president for Miami Homestead Speedway. Great one-on-one interview on Monday for our programming. And, of course, Eric Almirola, who's retiring at the end of the year. I got a 5.5-minute deal with him, as well as some of the other shows. So I'm really pumped up for NASCAR over the weekend. Of course, Miami Hurricanes, Duke Blue Devils will be sandwiched in between on Saturday. With that said, okay, we'll get right to it. NFL Amazon to stream on Black Friday game in 2023, Mr. Balusteri. Do you like it or do you not like it?
I don't really have an opinion one way or the other on this. I think it'll probably be popular just because, because it's Black Friday.
Right.
And, but I don't really have an opinion one way there. I guess it'll all depend on the two teams they pick.
Yeah.
You said there's going to be games on Black Friday?
Yeah. You didn't know that, Mel?
NFL games?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. They're going to compete with college. Does college normally play on that day?
Well,
yeah.
Welcome to 2023, Mel. We're in about 2 months. Yeah, they're going to have NFL games on that day. Yeah, but your train of thought is right. Usually the colleges do. But the NFL wants some of that Black Friday, Monday, and knowing full well that the retail business is going down the toilet anyways, and everybody's doing it online. Who's going to care anyhow? So they figured, well, you're going to buy from Amazon all your Black Friday stuff. We'll go out there and shoot you a football game. Just hope it's a whole lot better than the last couple of weeks and whatever else they got lined up. But yeah, Mel, what are your thoughts about the NFL getting a piece of that action on Black Friday?
It seems kind of strange to me. I mean, I guess we're kind of used to what we've been used to, the Thanksgiving games.
Mm-hmm.
Or there weren't a whole lot of games. We always could look forward to Dallas and Detroit playing.
Right.
When I grew up, now we have that late game in the evening. Friday games, I always look forward to the college games. I can't think of who plays. Is it there's some nice games on that Friday, Saturday. Look forward to those college games. So, and to be honest with you, I like the college game probably a little bit more than NFL game probably, and I would probably watch the college game more so than I would an NFL game, especially if it's not a team. Some teams that are worthy of my eyeballs. And that's what you gotta have to look at too. They need to have a flex schedule so the games matter, so that people will want to watch it. If you have, Detroit playing Cleveland or something like that, I don't think you're gonna get that many eyeballs playing when you have some of the, a lot of times you have rivalry matchups on that weekend. So I'm not a big fan of that.
Well, I remember growing up as a kid. You're really on target there, Mel. I used to remember watching when Nebraska was relevant. Used to play Oklahoma, and they used to have a lot of those big rivalry games. Now
that's the one I remember the biggest from, Black Friday is Oklahoma, Nebraska.
Yeah, now they're just shades of themselves too
Yeah.
now. But yeah, those are the ones. I always thought the colleges own them, but it looks like the NFL can buy up whatever they want. I know, Jennifer, you probably never paid attention to Black Fridays when we were growing up as a kid with all those
No,
rivalries.
I get some, but I mean, because my mom actually hated shopping on Black Friday.
Oh, did she really?
Yeah. So, like, I would sit on the couch and watch, and I'll tell anybody and everyone, my dad pretty much had me throwing a football by the time I was 2. Still in a crib and catching and throwing a football.
That
Just
was
saying, he didn't
That's
care.
a good dad right there.
No, he
That's
is
a
a
good
good
Yeah,
daddy.
I know. He is a pretty good dad.
Yeah, now he's going to be
Unfortunately,
proud of his daughter for being a broadcaster, appearing with a couple beat writers and a player. I'll bet your daddy's really proud of you. So answer the
Yeah,
question, Miss Jennifer. What are your
yeah,
thoughts
he's
about
proud.
games on Black Friday?
No, here's my question.
Sure.
When
Oh, you're asking me.
Bezos becomes the owner of the Commanders, will he have to sell his part of Amazon?
Why would he?
Especially because Jay-Z had to when he started the agency.
That's different.
Well, because he has the Thursday night game. Is that what you mean?
Because he has the Thursday night game and he'll have the Black Friday game. Plus, he'll be profiting from people going in.
He's not.
To,
He doesn't run the day to day anymore.
Huh?
He gave up the day to day operation.
Oh, did he? Okay. Okay. I wasn't sure about that. Sorry. I thought he still had the final nod. He has to go fly around the helicopter.
I'm sure he's probably still on the board or something like that, but I don't think he's the CEO anymore. I don't think he's in charge of the day to day operation.
Okay.
You know, he has all that stock. You know, he's been traveling around with his cute little girlfriend, so you know, he's got better.
And their helicopter
going to space and different things of that nature.
Also, the helicopter, can you tell?
So, let me go back to the question with you, Jen. You like it or not? Black Friday game?
I think it's stupid.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you're taking game, unless you're changing that ball game, Black. But I actually, with everyone else, it's Black Friday. And college ball is different because these guys are literally playing for the love of the game. Mm-hmm. Some of them know they're going to go pro. Some of them know they're not. Their last Black Fridays, some of their first Black Friday games, but take away from college.
All right, so Jennifer, you're saying that you don't like it either.
I don't like it.
Yeah, you know,
I'm pretty indifferent, but I'm more on the not liking it side of indifference.
Yeah, I guess you have a complete majority here. I'm not crazy about it, but the NFL is looking to get a piece of that action. Why not do it since they got Amazon as their brand new toy anyway? So, all right. Well, let's go on a topic here that Steve Balusteri is all too familiar with, and then we'll blow through it if anybody else doesn't have anything to say, because he really is all too familiar with this one. The Texans parted ways with Executive Vice President Jack Easterby. Is that long overdue, Steve? Why don't you give me your thoughts about that situation?
Way long overdue.
Yeah.
I remember, I mean, he was the character coach in New England, and he somehow he has the gift of gab, because he somehow convinced the McNairs down in Houston that he was a football guy, and he's not. And he started getting involved with all kinds of different stuff down there, and you see where Houston is right now, and they're going to be trying to dig out from the mess he created for a very long time. But I mean, this guy got really bizarre, because I was listening to a podcast on Sports Radio 610 down in Houston with Landry Locker and John Lopez.
Oh, yeah. And
Locker was telling on the air the most bizarre story I've ever heard, and it speaks to how far out there Easterby is. And Easterby told this guy, and this guy, I'm going to read you the exact quote.
Okay.
He said this with a straight face, and I couldn't believe it, Locker said. He said the reason he left New England, and Locker went on to talk about how he swears he told him this exactly. He says, on everything I love, I put this this is why he said he left New England, because Robert Kraft asked him to clone Bill Belichick.
Really?
He said that Kraft wanted him to follow Belichick around, take notes on him so they could clone him after he left.
Wow.
And, when Easterby was talking with this John Locker, and he said, I couldn't do that to Bill. Okay. So that tells you how far out there this guy really was. And I remember when he got involved with football operations, they asked Belichick about it, and Belichick just kind of gave a half grin and said, Jack's not a football guy. And then they asked him another question. He goes, Jack is not a football guy.
Wow.
And then everything blew up with Desean Watson before all these allegations came to light.
Mhm.
And he alienated everyone in the building with the exception of the McNairs. And I guess they finally got tired of him, and that's why he's out.
Interesting. All right, Jen, before you go ahead and come on this, I'll just let everybody know, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel or visit www.southfloridatribune.com. And to advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. If that's a difficult step, go to youtube.com, look for South Florida Tribune, hit the subscribe button, and you get to see all these podcasts firsthand, as well as all the trouble I cause out in the field, do those videos where I'm all over the place. All right. That said, Jennifer, okay, pick up where Steve, left off. If you have an answer to the mystery of Jack Easterby.
Okay, so Steve, your story about that. Has the dude heard of sarcasm or someone being facetious whatsoever?
Oh, no. He was dead serious when he told John Locker.
He truly thought Kraft was being serious.
He said that he told Locker that's why.
A jokester also and a kind of a smart aleck? No, he's not. Oh, okay, I kind of thought he was. I know Belichick is, but
Belichick was absolutely correct that he had no background in football. None.
Well, I will say that he goes more organizational changes with Houston. That's step direct stuff on the topic.
I'm sorry, you kind of broke up there a little bit.
You broke up, Jen. You there, Jennifer? Well, okay.
Yeah, I couldn't really hear what she was asking, but no, Easterby. A lot of people have been saying he was way out there, and a lot of people accused him of being kind of a con man, and the more I hear about his escapades in Houston, I'm not surprised at all.
Well, that David Culley situation was a bad look altogether. I'm sure we'll get Jennifer back in a moment, but that David Culley situation was a bad thing. I really felt bad for that guy. I really did.
And supposedly that was Easterby's doing.
Yeah, no, I believe that. Here's Jennifer.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there she is. She's back. Okay, Jen, pick it up. Before Steve and I were talking about the David Culley fiasco, but proceed, Jennifer.
Okay, sorry. No, I don't really have a dog in that fight. I think it's good that some organizational changes are occurring in Houston. I think there needs more. I think the McNairs need to be booted out.
Mel, some thoughts on the Jack Easterby situation?
I don't really know enough about him to comment on him, but I will say, given his background, it doesn't necessarily surprise me.
Right.
But when I say that, I'm saying that, I know a lot of African-American individuals that work in the front office for a lot of organizations that have way more qualifications than this guy, and he got an opportunity to run a program.
Yeah,
and that's kind of upsetting. That's disheartening to me. I know a guy, man. I grew up with his dad was a coach, man, longtime coach, was one of those guys' names who would always come up for a head coaching position and never got an opportunity to have a head coaching job in the NFL. And son followed his dad, except he was, worked in the front office, and he was right there ready to get his opportunity. And all of a sudden, boom, it was gone. And, and I know, and he's been around football all his life. Right. This guy started out as a team chaplain. They brought him in to help the players deal with the Aaron Hernandez fiasco, all that stuff that was going on with that. And then, somehow or another, he played his cards right. And next thing you know, obviously he doesn't know anything about football. I mean, he faked it till he could make it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Faked it until folks figured out that he didn't know know what he was talking about. But, he's got a very well-paying job, a very respected position that a lot of guys have worked their tails off for and will never get that opportunity.
Yeah.
Nope. And those are the teams that follow that kind of scenario that you're talking about, Mel, that never win, right. Because when it comes down to it, in the NFL, you're in the business of winning football games, and the goal is to win the ultimate football game in the Super Bowl. And if you're not hiring the best people, then you're not going to win.
Well, as much as I hate to bring this example up because it pains me to do it, when the Lions hired Matt Millen to me to lead that organization, but Matt didn't want the job. I mean, William Clay Ford wanted him to have it, but he was definitely not qualified. So they had to bring in an experienced head coach after Marty Morningwig left. And, that was a bad look. But you're right. I guess the bottom line, what Mel's saying is totally right. The guys that are unqualified to get the jobs get them, and then there's a lot of other people that don't get them, and that's a shame. So we'll move on to a different topic. Steve, I just wanted mainly your insights and see if the other two wanted to go ahead and talk about it. So you think that the Jack Easterby thing is simply long overdue, and that
long overdue. He should have never been elevated to that position.
Right. And David Culley got a wrong deal. I just hope he's being paid well for the embarrassment that he had. So anyways, we'll go on to Joe Burrow extending his undefeated streak to 9-0, dating back to LSU with the Bengals 30-26 win over the Saints. Well, Joe Burrow knows how to win in Louisiana, doesn't he, Jennifer?
Yep. I would take him for that reason as a quarterback.
Yeah, good old Joe Burrow.
He's an impressive young man. People say last year was a fluke, but is it really a fluke? Not really. I've known a couple other quarterbacks able to carry their teams on their shoulders, even though he was the most sacked quarterback last season. So
how do you like his mastery in Louisiana, Jennifer? Come on. I mean, this guy, he's got a mastery in Louisiana. Probably love the crawfish, and of course the LSU Tigers are eternally great.
I mean, not everybody can be perfect, right? Yeah. I mean, if you're eating crawfish, something's weird with you.
He is in Louisiana. That's all I can tell. Hey, listen, I like to come up with different stuff, and Joe Burrow being 9-0 in Louisiana isn't the worst thing I've ever seen. Mel, what are your thoughts about Joe B doing well in Louisiana?
That's great. Great for the team. They're not playing anybody right now. The Saints aren't a very good football team, although they're up right now. But they're not a very good football team.
Andy Dalton threw a touchdown.
Yeah, threw a nice little ball too. But they're not a very good football team. When he was at LSU, I mean, they were loaded. Obviously,
they were
a ton of talent on the teams that he played. But Joe Burrow, I like him as a quarterback. I liked him when he I have my suspicions. When you leave one program and go to another program, there's a reason why you leave. But I think he's one of those guys that actually proved me wrong. He left for a better opportunity for himself, give himself a chance to play. Maybe he felt he was never going to get the opportunity to play at Ohio State. I'm not sure. But that marriage with him and Coach O worked out real well for both of them. Get him the opportunity to win a national championship, go on and be selected high in the NFL draft. And, even though, generally when you get selected high, you go into a bad football team. Cincinnati's been one of those teams that at least has smelled the Super Bowl before. They haven't won one, but they've smelled it. And, we know that ownership is a little bit cheap there. So, but they will stick with their head coach. There won't be a whole lot of turnover there. They'll stick with their head coach probably definitely a lot longer than most owner as well. They're very, very patient. So I think he got an opportunity to go to a pretty good organization, and they're going to have a chance to do some winning there, until they have to pay him. And then we'll see what happens.
Well, Zach Taylor's done a good job, and you're right. They gave Marvin Lewis a long leash over there too. And actually, ownership this summer was willing to spend
Mike
money to try to bolster that offensive line. You are right, though. They don't spend a whole lot of money there at all. But for some reason or another, ownership was willing to spend a little bit of money. I think they're also trying to upgrade their practice facilities a little bit as well. So maybe Cincinnati's starting to get it figured out. You do need to spend a little bit of money. But Steve, what are your thoughts about Joe Burrow in Louisiana? Listen, was he with LSU, and then of course,
yeah. When I watched him at LSU, especially that national championship game,
right?
He was just on another plane,
wasn't he?
And I knew he was going to do well in the NFL. And it started off slow because as Mel said, when you get drafted that high, you're usually going to a really bad football team. And they've been trying to put the pieces around him. Last year, they made it to the big game. Cincinnati's made it a couple of times to the big games, but that one year, twice I think they played.
Well, they went to Super Bowl 16 in the Pontiac Silverdome, and then I think they followed it up in Miami.
Yeah, that was the John Candy game,
right?
Against Miami. They were up in the last 2 minutes, and they had the 49ers back on their 8-yard line.
Yeah,
and you were thinking, hey, Cincinnati might pull this one off, and
Yeah, listen, when Cincinnati gets to the big games, they lose some pretty good quarterbacks. You can't blame the Bengals too.
Yeah,
bad.
I mean that Montana was on a different plane at the end of that game as well. But no, I like Joe Burrow. I think he's fantastic, and hats off to him. I mean, they've struggled a little bit this year, but that comes with the territory. It seems like every year the team that loses the Super Bowl struggles, at least early in the season, the next year.
Yeah, well, this year it looks like the Rams are too. But you know what?
Yeah.
The reason why I brought this topic is I was just intrigued by Joe Burrow being able to win a lot of games in one state, much less being undefeated in that state. He played college ball there, and of course I like Joe Burrow. If he can stay upward and they can keep Joe Mixon out there and they have Jamar Chase, I like the Bengals. I wouldn't rule them out totally a whole lot, but you know what? Joe Burrow is just a class act. And, let's face it, the Bayou should be very thankful that he was a part of their positive sports history, knowing he did win at LSU, and he was able to take his act to the Super Bowl. So more power to him that he's 9-0 in the state of Louisiana and beat the Saints 30-26. It was a pretty interesting ball game. All right, we're going to go to
a question. Wasn't it the Bengals that – I think it was the Bengals last year. I don't think it was the Browns that it was the first playoff appearance since text messaging became a thing.
I don't know about that.
First playoff
been the Browns, because the Bengals, when Marvin Lewis was there, made the playoffs almost every year.
7-8 times. I just don't think they won any games. That's all.
Yeah, they just couldn't win in the playoffs, but they always had good teams with him.
And I think
the irony is Andy Dalton
will take the Browns to the playoffs. Didn't they go to the playoffs one year with Baker?
Yeah.
Baker did take them to the playoffs, so I knew it wasn't Baker. I thought it was the Bengals. So
the Lions probably haven't been there since text messaging was enabled.
Yeah,
I know. Well, the reason I was asking because I remember there's like a meme or something going around last year on Facebook that said that the Bengals hadn't been to the playoffs, hadn't had a text message sent with them legitimately going to the playoffs because text messaging hadn't been invented since their previous playoff appearance.
Well, now you got me curious. When did text messaging start? I don't even remember.
Early 2000s, late 90s.
Oh, well, I'm sure that the Bengals have been there before.
Yeah, because Marvin Lewis was still the coach.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. So, and of course, if we want to talk about the Superdome, what about Joe Horn having to have phone buried in the goal? Oh, that was so funny. I'm sorry.
Since color television was since we started.
We're age on this broadcast.
Y'all are going soon, I swear, Mel.
and yet the irony of the whole thing is that Andy Dalton was the guy who Joe Burrow faced in this last game, I believe, right? So, he ended up seeing the guy on the other end of the Bengals losing to Joe Burrow, who turned out to be a successor. All right. Now, on to a new segment that we're going to probably start today and incorporate one or two of these topics every week. We're going to start going to list, and I'll find one list per show or maybe two. But this week, I believe I had time for at least two. We have the top 5 receiving leaders, and I'll give you the list and how many yards, and you guys can give me your comments, guys and gal, okay? Can give me your comments about the best one of the group. Top 5 receiving leaders, Tyreek Hill for Miami's got 701 yards. Stephon Diggs with Buffalo, 656. Justin Jefferson, Minnesota, 654. Cooper Kupp, 607. Jalen Waddle, Miami, 533. Steve, which one intrigues you the most? I guess the word intrigues is probably the best way we can describe all these.
Yeah, well, you kind of expected Hill and Diggs to be there, Cooper Kupp. I think Jalen Waddle's coming into his own this year, but I'm really impressed with what I've seen so far this year with Justin Jefferson.
Okay.
And I mean, all of these guys are really top flight wide receivers, but I think he's having a lot more success than we probably might have envisioned at this stage of the season. So I'll go with him. All of them are very worthy.
What about you, Mal?
Wide receiver is such a dependent position. You're dependent upon somebody to be able to get the ball to you, somebody that can get the ball to you. So, on the other side of each one of those wide receivers, there's a pretty decent quarterback and or a commitment to get that person the ball or to throw the ball a lot.
Right.
So wide receiver is one of those positions that's extremely dependent. But what was your question regarding the wide receivers, though?
Well, which one intrigues you of this list? You got Tyreek Hill, you have Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle.
Tyreek Hill, probably because where he came from and where he went,
right,
and not really knowing, about Tua, what Tua was going to do, whether Tua doesn't have enough arm for him, to be honest with you. I mean, right. He's got to throw that ball way early and let Tyreek run underneath it. Right. But that's really surprising to me. But they're doing a lot of things to keep Tyreek happy, I think, too. I mean, you spend that kind of money to get that kind of player, give up that type of draft capital to get that type of player, and he needs to be a big focal point of your offense. And obviously he is. He's a huge part of what they do over there. And the things that Jalen Waddle, he's playing well too, and he's all real dependent upon Tua as well. So to see both of those guys are able to flourish, in the same offense, I think that is really surprising because I didn't really know what we were going to get from Tua, to be honest with you.
Right. Good answer, Jen. What do you think?
Honestly, I got to go with Mel, Tyreek Hill and Waddle, because nobody really did expect to see what Miami would do this year. I do think Tua needs to sit out a couple more games, but I'm fine with him sitting out the rest of the season, and that's just out of concern for his health. I don't have a dog in that fight, but Hill and Waddle have just come into their own. Everybody said Hill wouldn't do anything without Patrick. Everybody said and Chiefs Kingdom that Patrick wouldn't do anything without Hill. Well, they're two really good players, but Hill wanted to make that money, so he went where that money was offered. I would do it. I would if I was offered that much money. Heck yeah, I'd go. But
you know what? I'm actually going to go with Cooper Kupp. And you know why I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp in this situation? Number one, Allen Robinson hasn't really paid his due, hasn't paid dividends yet. And I'm still waiting the Rams come to their senses and eventually get Odell Beckham Jr. So essentially, Matthew Stafford has only been able to throw it to one guy. He still has amassed 607 yards. Initially, I wanted to go with Hill and Waddle because of the quarterback roulette that you have between Tua and then you have Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson. That makes the most sense to be able to go with them. But then as I thought about it, I thought Cooper Kupp with 607 yards and nobody around to protect him. But Stafford, to me, is the most intriguing option for me. So, I'm going to go Cooper Kupp. All right, we have another one here. I'll throw it at you. And that's the top 5 rushing leaders. Nick Chubb of Cleveland, 649. Number 1, Saquon Barkley with the Giants, 616. Josh Jacobs for the Raiders for 190. Miles Sanders for 185 with Philly, and Lamar Jackson for Baltimore 451. Okay, Jennifer, I'm going to start with you. Which one of these 5 intrigues you?
None.
Okay. Okay.
I got a running back I'm partial to. I'm sorry.
So
And
I'll take a page out of Regis Philbin. Is that
Go
your
ahead
final?
while you can.
that's my final answer, baby. None of those.
All right. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay, Mr. Running Back, what do you think?
Probably Lamar. You know, being a quarterback and being in the top 5 in rushing. That's not necessarily something that you want to see, but that's kind of how Baltimore is built.
Right.
And for Baltimore, you look at it like this. This is how I look at it. People talk about, you don't want your quarterback running, you don't want to take those hits and so forth and so on. Well, you got to. This is what he does well. Now, maybe he won't last 15, 20 years like Tom Brady and Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers. Maybe you only get a good 9, 10 years. Well, that's what you get. But those 9, 10 years are going to be a great 9, 10 years. And so let's not try to make him something that he's not. I do believe that Lamar can throw the ball because, I mean, we saw him do it at Louisville. But he's such a threat, as is Jalen Hurts, to run the football. And that puts so much pressure on the defense because you have to prepare for that. You don't have that extra man anymore because you have to figure that the quarterback is a ball carrier as well. So now you can actually have 10 men blocking on any given play. So to me, yes, Lamar Jackson and what he's doing.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that quarterback is a leading rusher on the team, but not in the case of Lamar Jackson. All right, Steve, where are you going with this one?
Yeah. Well, to follow along with what Jen said, I mean, my running back is only 3 yards behind Lamar with 20 less carries, so I kind of like him. But the top 5.
And who is it?
Ramondre Stevenson.
Okay, good. Okay, now continue.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson, to me, I mean, everyone knows he's going to run. And until teams actually play him, I don't think they understand how fast he is.
Right.
Because, you see him on tape and you're like, yeah, he's got some speed. But when you see him on the field, he just blows people away.
Yeah.
And he has the capability to run over people as well as run by them. And it seems like every year, everyone's like, oh, they're going to figure out Lamar. I haven't seen it yet. I mean, sometimes they can shut down the passing game on them. But, when he runs the football, I think him and Josh Allen are the two outliers among quarterbacks where it's like they're a threat to score every time they touch the football. And they're amazing to watch. But Jackson, to me, is one of the most exciting players in the NFL, if not the most, because every time he touches the ball, you lean forward in your seat. And that's, that's just the way it is. And sometimes when your team is playing his, you're not too happy about the way the game progresses, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. And, I agree with Mel. I mean, he might only have 10 years because of the style that he plays, but
right.
I remember a tight end for New England. Everyone was saying the same thing. He's not going to last long, but that was 10 really good football seasons with that guy. So,
well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley. And you know why I'm going to go with him? Because he's healthy. Other than that, I wouldn't go with him. So you might as well take the guy while he's healthy. We don't know how long it's going to stay that way. But as of October,
Giants are playing good football.
They are playing good football. But as of October 20th, 2022, I must go with Saquon Barkley of the Giants with 616 yards. If for no other reason the guy's healthy. At this point of the year, that hadn't been the case the last few years. Of course, doesn't hurt that it's in a contract year. But what I love about Lamar Jackson beyond his running ability, what about his humility? He loves playing the game. He's just a down-to-earth kid. He's going to get paid anyways. Just the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost you. So it doesn't matter.
I think him waiting is the smartest thing ever. People disagree with me. I think he wants out of Baltimore. Baltimore hadn't done enough for him lately, and it's not even about the bottom dollar to me. because he has the talent to be MVP, and he has had it. I think he's been failed by coaching and front office.
Good point. Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of different people that he might just.
They got it from me. I'm
There
kidding.
you go. Well, listen, let me tell you what, after what you did last week about that.
Thank you
that
for
rule-
laughing, Steve. I
you know
don't
what,
think you knew
Jennifer?
about that. I was serious.
I respect the knowledge of you, Candy, and your other two cohorts beyond the ums. Okay, but when you went off on the Matt Rule thing there, that's the longest I've been quiet for 10 minutes, and
It
anybody's
really
done it.
was. I was proud of you. Thank you for that.
You know what? Jennifer, you're on a roll. I had to do what I knew that night I was not going to lose my voice because I made darn sure you were going to make sure I wasn't going to lose it.
Listen, like off record, those
What?
guys, I don't care what the media reports. I don't care what the players say to the media. Those guys are relieved. I know it for a fact.
Okay. Well, I can
I'm
just
not
say right
traditional
now,
media.
Lamar Jackson is the most humble person I've ever seen,
Mhm.
and he's everything that's good about the NFL. Or a lot of guys that are not good for the NFL, but Lamar Jackson. It'll be interesting to see whether Baltimore pays him or he's going to get paid somewhere else. And we'll leave it at that.
Somewhere else.
But of that choice, I just have to go back to the original top 5 rushing leaders. I'm only going with Saquon Barkley because the man is healthy. So you know what, Steve? You gave me a great segue to the next one, so I'm going to do that. And that's the most total yards. We're going to talk about teams. Buffalo is 2,645, Philly 2,367, Cleveland 2,310, KC 2,294, New Orleans 2,294. And you know what? Mr. Josh Allen has 2,237. How about that? We just talked about Lamar Jackson. All right, Steve, pick it up from there. What are your thoughts?
The Bills offense. Oh, and by the way, Andy Dalton just threw an interception in the end zone. So
did he? Okay.
7-3. But
so what are your thoughts about that?
I think Josh Allen is right now. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFL. He can run, he can throw, and he can make all the throws. Obviously, I mean, he has a cannon for an arm. And the only thing I worry about him, again, I mean, is staying healthy. He's the leading rusher on the team.
Yeah.
And I think they run him a little too much. I mean, even when they're comfortably ahead, they're running him up the middle where, he's going to get hit. And, at times you don't want to see a quarterback like that. I mean, he's becoming just as big a face of the NFL as Patrick Mahomes is right now.
Yeah.
And you don't want to see a guy like that get hurt, by running the football in a blowout game. So
no, that's true.
But that offense of theirs, and it's fun to watch if you're a football fan. And Josh Allen right now is definitely on top of his game. That throw he made in the end zone on Sunday, that was a beauty because that was in a really tight window, and he put it right in there where, what ended up being the winning touchdown this time. But in that run he made where he vaulted over the cornerback or a safety, I can't remember who it was, but that's incredible stuff.
Well, to think that University of Wyoming Cowboys produce this guy means you can find a quarterback anywhere. I guess they do a better job than North Dakota State. I'm not going to go any further. I don't want to go past Jennifer's bedtime here about what she's got to do. So I'll try to keep it real for them.
I have work to do.
I know. I'm dealing with you, Jennifer. You know that, right? Okay. But no, so all right. Well, with that,
never stops, Scott.
Oh, I know. Trust me. I know. I have somebody that's very good at it here in this room, as you know. Sorry, Jennifer. Give me your thoughts about that unique take about Josh Allen having 2,237 yards, along with 5 teams that are above him. I mean, this guy's an unbelievable player.
Oh, absolutely, he's an unbelievable player. Listen, I'm partial to the Bills. I like the Bills because they have half my team, right? So of course, why wouldn't I be partial to them? So, and they have half my front office. I'd like them. Some of those guys.
They might have your running back real soon too.
Yeah, I heard.
52 weeks a year, they get a call on him. We want too much for him. It's not going to happen. And I'm saying, I said last week, because against 49ers, Christian only had 54 rushing yards. Every other game this year, he had 100+ rushing yards. He had 158 against this past weekend. And I'm telling you, he's going to have another blowout game. He's going to be back in the top 3, and probably pushing towards that 1,000 club again this year, given the right quarterback. If we can get that quarterback situation fixed. But I see the 1,000 club in his future again, and I hope to God it's with the Carolina Panthers. However, if it's not, I hope to God it's with the Bills or with KC or the 49ers and other, any of the Super Bowl contenders, because it's not the NFC South this year.
All right, but back to Josh Allen.
Back to the Josh Allen. Josh Allen is amazing to watch. I enjoy watching him. Who doesn't? I also for me, I enjoy watching the Kansas City Chiefs as well. They've never really bothered me. I've always related to KC because I felt like they were kind of, they're a mid-market level team until they got Patrick Mahomes, right? People really didn't pay attention unless their team was playing. They were like, playing who? And they've just really, both of those quarterbacks have really elevated their teams. Right. Everybody's always known about the Bills, at least in my lifetime, considering, all the Super Bowls they went to without winning. And so, it's their year. I really hope the Bills, I cut it at the beginning of the year that the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Go Bills, go Josh Allen.
Well, good. All right, Mel, you heard Jennifer, you've heard Steve. What's your take on Mr. Allen?
He's a beast.
Yeah.
The way Buffalo played the first couple of weeks, you can tell they're a team on a mission, and obviously, they had that bad taste in their mouth from last year's AFC Championship game where they ended up losing the thing in the final seconds, or in overtime, I believe it was. But they're on a mission, and Josh Allen, he's the leader of that team, and they're on a mission to get something done. They have unfinished business, so it doesn't surprise me he's doing what he's doing. I mean, you look at him; he's put that team on his shoulder. I mean, he's willing that team to win, doing whatever he feels he has to do to put that team in a position to win. I mean, you look at the improvement that he's had year over year over year. I mean, when he first came into the league, you can see he was, we know he's a high draft pick, but you can see he was kind of unsure of himself. Now, he's like a man amongst boys. I mean, hurdling people, the things that he's doing. I mean, he's a beast. He's a big time player. He's must see TV, and so it doesn't surprise me the things that he's doing.
Yeah, I believe it or not, even though Brian Daboll left and doing a marvelous job at the Giants, there's no drop off. And you are right, Mel. I mean, and Steve and Jen, when you get so close to it and you taste it, you have a bad feel for 12 months. And when you have a bad feel for that long, they're on a mission to do it. And I hope the Bills have a chance to pull it off. I really do. All right, one other subject I want to get to before we go to parting comments. And it's one I really don't like talking about, but it's one of the trending ones we have to speak about, Steve. Should Dan Snyder be forced to sell the Washington Commanders? Boy, this thing's getting uglier by the week.
Absolutely. He should have been gone a while ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to do that, but if they're going to force him to sell, because that's those owners, who knows what they're thinking deep down. But, they all have skeletons in their closet, so they don't want to bring it out into the open. But yeah, this guy he's a terrible owner. That was one of the best franchises in the NFL. They were always a contender. They were a very well-run franchise.
Well, Jack Cook was the owner of that franchise, and he had the Lakers before he decided to get rid of the Lakers and sell it to Bus. So because they went against,
and the Skins were always a contender. They were in the playoffs. They had great teams. They won a couple of Super Bowls with Joe Gibbs, where they had different quarterbacks in every one.
Yeah,
that speaks to you of how good a team they were actually putting together. Where they had, I think it was 3 different quarterbacks in 3 different Super Bowls.
Right.
So that's, and then since he took over, they've been a laughingstock, and nobody wants to go there. No one wants to go coach for him because they don't want to have to deal with him. And then all these sexual allegations and the way sexual harassment's been, and it starts from the top down. It's not mid-level people. It's not, some assistant coach. It's like all the top executives. It's a horrible run organization, and he needs to go.
Jennifer?
He needs to have been gone. I know a lot of stuff that I'm not allowed to repeat, but I love that Ursi because all Ursi's secrets are already out in public, right? So like there's really not that many more skeletons. I love that he was the one who said it. I don't understand why Goodell's so afraid of Snyder. If it's because he has, info, maybe he was cheating on his wife. Keep it zip, buddy. You took vows. Enough said. That way, but then what Dan Snyder has done, I said this on Facebook. Dan Snyder shouldn't even be allowed in an NFL stadium, much less own a team. People in Washington and Commanders fans want to just blame it on. Who do you think's taking a lot of heat? Like this is coming from the top down. We've seen it in Denver. We've seen it here. We've seen it there. We've seen it whenever your stuff is facing that much scrutiny, it's going to trickle down and hit your players. It's gonna hit your fans. It's hitting your bottom dollar. The minority owners were trying to sell before all of this came public anyway. And do we not all know that Jerry Jones has hookers and blow in some of his suites at Cowboy Stadium? Because we do. So why is Jerry Jones scared? And his case just came back up. There's several owners. I mean, to be that rich and that powerful, you've got skeletons. You're probably not a nice person. Chances are. That being said, doesn't mean you're going to be stepping out on your spouse or you're going to be this disaster of a person. So, yeah, he needs to sell. He needs to be forced out. He needed to have been forced out. And who the hell cares if he has PIs on him? We all know these boys are angels. We all know what New Orleans owner, Mrs. Benson, has been accused of, and that the NFL is still quietly investigating her. We all know it.
Right.
Just stop. Like, it doesn't have to be this bad. You don't have to have women's lives threatened, going and having hoodlums knocking on the door 2:00 in the morning, breaking into a girl's apartment to put bugs in her phone.
Right.
But why do you have a landline this day and age? But why? Why are you so scared of one cheerleader? You're dirty. If you're that scared, you're dirty. And she was smart because she went public. So if anything happens, everybody knows where to look.
Okay. Okay, Mel. What do you think about Dan Snyder?
It's rich people problems.
That's what it is.
There's a lot, like everybody's been saying, that a lot of these owners, I mean, they aren't choir boys. I mean, we had Steve's owner, a couple years ago down in the little spa down there in Florida, and Jerry Jones. There's a whole lot of stuff we've heard about Jerry Jones. There's different things on many different owners out there. They're not; these guys aren't choir boys. They didn't get to where they are being choir boys.
Right.
Now, does it mean that you have to be an a-hole? No. Just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you have to be an a-hole? No. But, somebody once said to me a long time ago, men acquire money to attract more women. So the more money you have, the more women you're going to attract, obviously. And these guys all have big egos.
Right.
They have humongous egos. Now, I'm not saying that all of them are cheating on their wives or this, that, and the other, but I can guarantee you that they're all doing some dirt, and they have dirt on one another because they've done it together. I'm certain. The little owners meetings, they go down to the nice little resorts and stuff like that, and there's probably a couple little gals over there, and everybody knows that that's so-and-so's gal. So it's not what Dan Snyder is revealing is probably not anything new. They all know. I mean, we know Jim Irsay, he's had his problems. So I don't think I don't think ownership, well, they don't like Dan Snyder. A lot of the owners don't like Dan Snyder, have not liked him because of the way that he came into the league. And then with him trying to get the Super Bowl in DC and some of the things that he said about the Bidwell family and so forth and so on, when they ended up getting the Super Bowl and it wasn't awarded to the Washington area. So a lot of the owners don't like him, but now he did have a very powerful friend in Jerry Jones.
Right.
Everybody knows that. That was one of his better friends amongst the ownership. Now for these 32 guys to vote one of them off the island, That's gonna be difficult because
Well, you need 24 to get it done.
pardon me.
You need 24 to get it done. 24.
I understand that, but I mean that's an exclusive club.
Oh, yeah.
So you gotta get 24 people to vote you off the island. Will it happen? I don't know. I can't say.
Okay, well let me give a little more information out there. First of all, Dan Snyder went ahead and charged people to attend training camp when he first took over ownership of, at that time, the Redskins. Item number one. Item number two, okay, here's the thing. FedEx Field is outdated. They need a new stadium in the worst way, and he has not been able to get one because of all the things that have gone on the last couple of years. Number three, you've had the name change, okay, from the Redskins to the Washington football team to the Commanders. You've had that to deal with. He's overpaid players and they have underperformed. I mean, you talk about a guy with a rap sheet. Now, if there's one guy I do feel sorry for, Jennifer, your old coach, is that Ron Rivera, to me, has to answer questions after a football game about everything that's wrong with the organization. I want to hear about the Carson Wentz stuff, about who did what, who won. That had nothing to do with it. But I do have sympathy for Ron, really do. He had to be part of the name change and all the distractions to cover up, and he wants to focus on football. That's what a football coach is supposed to do, not be the guy that has to cover the owner's tracks. And that, to me, is what Riverboat Ron has had to do. But here's the thing, okay? Now there are suites that are not even being rented at FedEx Field, and the stadium's falling apart. So now you run into a situation where a team that used to make a lot of money is at the bottom of the revenue charts, and the owners will think long and hard about, okay, how much longer can we have the Commanders?
That's according to one set of books, though, Scott. Remember, he has multiple sets of books. That's why the IRS is investigating him.
Well, okay, but he has a lot of problems, Jennifer, is what he does. Mm-hmm. And when you don't have suites being filled and you're at the bottom of the food chain, the owners aren't looking to have you in a club here where you're a liability to them. That's all I'm saying. If you're a liability to these guys, and the key word here is liability. When you're a liability to their club, then regardless of what dirt you have on there, it doesn't matter. A lot of people say, why is Roger Goodell running scared? I don't know. We don't have time for it tonight. We don't. But the reality is the rap sheet on Dan Snyder is so big that at some point or another, I do think that he's going to wind up selling this team, whether he likes it or not. And if for no other reason, you've got to get a stadium deal done within the next 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. You can't do anything with your current place now. I was in that stadium years ago. Ironically, I've been to 2 different stadiums in the D.C. area. I ended up going to RFK many years ago. I enjoyed watching games there. And, of course, I went to FedEx when it was brand open. But now they can't even get a stadium anywhere. And that's what they've got to do. And that's where the pressing issue is at that situation. But Ron Rivera, I do feel bad for him because not only is he a football coach, but he has to deal with the external distractions that any normal coach should not have to deal with and focus on winning, playing football. It's been dysfunctional. Mike Shanahan knows that. Joe Gibbs' second tenure wasn't as good, and the list goes on and on. I think Steve Spurrier was there as well. So we can get into all the different coaches. So, yeah, Dan, I think you need to go ahead and sell the club. If you don't, you're going to be forced to do it one way or the other. And to me, I think he would go down as one of the worst owners ever in pro sports. And I would even put him in the category of Donald Sterling with the Clippers once upon a time. Look at Steve, cover up that head, buddy, because Sterling was bad, with the Clippers. So with that said, I said my piece, Dan. Quit while you're ahead, sell it while you can get a couple bucks, and let the franchise go into much better hands because you haven't done anything with it.
All right, and I do think that's why Ursi spoke out, honestly, because it's the NBA with Sterling and Sarver. Because without the NBA taking a hold, because look at what Jerry Richardson did. What he said, what he did, not cool. Little known fact, Jerry Richardson didn't ask if he could be inappropriate. He did. If he was turned down, he stopped. He said the ugly N-word one time to my knowledge, but he didn't want to drag the organization through the mud. That's why he sold. And he knew he was wrong. He knew he was wrong.
Yeah, but let me say one thing about Jerry Richardson. What he did was definitely wrong. But the
Yes.
only thing I'll say positive about Jerry Richardson, if it weren't for Jerry Richardson, Charlotte, North
We
Carolina,
wouldn't have a football team. And
That's all I'm
honestly,
gonna
he
say about it.
ran the team well.
Yeah, he did. He made a mistake, and it cost him his franchise.
Yeah.
But you know what? It did. I mean, and all it
And
takes
all
is
of
one
those
mistake.
mistakes happened. My dad swears they happened after he had some serious surgery. So
Right.
I don't know if that had to do with the price of tea in China or not. But
Well, I don't know. All I
you
can
got to
tell you
care about somebody other than yourself. And at least Jerry cared about the players and Ron enough to sell. And I hope to God Ron is making more money now because he doesn't lose his cool. He doesn't just walk off during media.
right.
So for him to do that, he was not a happy camper.
Well, let me tell you, Ron Rivera, I wouldn't be surprised if he gives his resignation and finds another gig somewhere else. That's just my prediction down the road. But in the end here, the bottom line is Snyder, the Washington needs a new owner in the worst way, because if you don't have an impending stadium deal, you're in trouble. To Richardson's credit, made a mistake, sold. But if it weren't for him, they wouldn't have it. They wouldn't have a franchise. They wouldn't have been in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Packers haven't been that
And then
bad.
you gotta actually
You had
go
an
back
owner
and
that
take
made a
NASCAR
mistake.
against
You
McNeil.
had an owner that made a mistake and he paid for it. All right. So let's go on to our parting comments. Okay. Jennifer, lead off. What's on your mind this week?
So I'm kind of trying to change it because it was about data. So we'll go with Brett Favre. I hope Brett Favre gets the civil judgment against him. I hope he has a case against him. If he does, he'll be like any president of the United States and never actually see a day in jail. But what he's done to the state of Mississippi and robbing welfare folks blind, not cool. He needs to go away. He's been a menace on the NFL, on the DL for so long. And you're not Robin Hood, dude. You're not Robin Hood. Stop.
Okay. Steve?
Yeah, I wanted to just talk about something that happened after Sunday's game. I thought it was really interesting. Okay. After the game in Cleveland, Bill Belichick brought the entire team back out on the field. And he had said that, because he was asked about it in the media afterwards, and he said, well, many of our players are active in social justice and inequality. And he said, and I told them I wanted them to look at the Browns Ring of Honor because there's 5 names up there that absolutely stand out on the Mount Rushmore of the conversation about inequality. He talked about Paul Brown for integrating the NFL. Then Bill Willis and Marion Motley were 2 of the first African-American players in the league. And then he talked about Jim Brown and Ozzie Newsome. And then he said about Jim Brown, he kind of stands out above everybody for what he stands for with equality, what he stands for in general, and what he was as a football player, and what he is as a man. And then he had the team bus stop and on the way out of the stadium so the players could get out and look at Jim Brown statues. And he said that, he wanted the players to get out and think about what Jim Brown gave up for, a lot of the issues that these guys are involved with. And he said, I just want you to think about the sacrifices he made. I thought that was a really cool thing to do. And it's one of those team building things, obviously, but at the same time, it's being aware of what's going on around you as a coach and as an individual. And, we talk about stuff like this all the time on here. And right. I just thought that was a really cool thing to do.
Well, thanks for bringing it up. I wonder how many of those players actually.
I wonder how
many of those players actually realize that he coached the Cleveland Browns.
I don't know, because a lot of these players are young. They probably weren't even alive when he coached.
Let me tell you something, Steve. You know how I can answer that question? Being around covering sports, a lot of players don't know what happened way back in the day. I could get into stories on another show and I can explain that, but many of them don't. All right, Mel, what's your parting comment?
Well, number 9 plays number 10 this weekend in college football. UCLA against Oregon. We're going to every week.
Who would that be, Mel?
We've been saying, hey, this, we'll find out what UCLA is all about, and all they do is keep winning. And now they got a big game here against Oregon coming up in Eugene, and we're looking for those Bruins to continue on this path and shake up the world. They're gonna. Alabama fell, so anything is possible right now. You get a Pac-12 team with an undefeated Pac-12 team. And they're gonna mess up a lot of things in the college football playoffs. So we're looking forward to these Bruins keeping that streak going.
Well, on earlier podcasts, Mel, I did predict UCLA would beat Oregon. So I hope I'm right. I hope you're right. I hope everybody in LA is right. All right, I'm going to give you an interesting parting comment. I love the way you brought up Alabama. I don't know what it is about you, Mel. Somehow, some way you read my mind in the most crazy ways. I mean, this is as crazy as it gets to. So I'll give you my parting comment on this. The Alabama Crimson Tide, you ready for this? Has allowed 50-plus points 5 times. Ready? In 1900, they lost 53-5 versus Auburn. 1906, 78-0 loss at Vanderbilt. Okay, again, this is one thing about our shows. I want to make sure you learn something. I'm making sure you learn something here. 1907, they lost 54-4 versus Sewanee of Tennessee. Never heard of it until this. Okay, now 2003, they lost 51-43 against number 22 Tennessee, and they were at home against Tennessee. And what happened on Saturday? Okay. Alabama lost 52-49 at number 6 Tennessee. Guess what, folks? 50 points against Alabama. It can be done, even if it's done probably in a 100-plus year span 5 times. There's my fact of the day that nobody in their right mind, and I'm not in my right mind, would even come up with. But I've always had a firm believer, okay, that when you watch our shows, not only do we give you the best insights that we can, but you're going to learn something. So Alabama has given up 50 points 5-plus times, and I never thought in my lifetime I would ever mention the name, okay, Sewanee of Tennessee. Never heard of it. Might end up doing
I want to know how Alabama got 4 points.
Yeah, I don't know either. Maybe 2 safeties. I don't know. Once upon a time, though, the Lions did lose to the Dallas Cowboys 5-0 in a playoff game back in the 70s. But we're not going there. Okay, but I just saw this unique fact here. And since we all have an opportunity to say something in the end, I know this is probably the only time, except when you find it on Instagram. The only thing I use Instagram nowadays for every now and then is to screenshot some interesting stuff so I can come up with content for us. So that was something different. I know. That's Mel, everybody. Well, we're going to let everybody have an opportunity to go out there and identify themselves, where they can be found, and then I'll give some final thoughts about how to contact us. All right, we'll lead it off with Mr. Patriot, Steve Balusteri.
You can find me just like this says on Twitter at SteveB7SFG on Twitter as well as Instagram. Everything else, Facebook, all the other social media sites at Steve Balusteri. I write for PatsFans.com. I'm also a military writer for Sandbox.com now.
Very good. Of course, Steve fills in when I need him on a lot of different shows when we need him, and we'll have a couple coming up before it's all said and done. Right now, I have a little bit of a log jam with my schedule. I have had it since Cooperstown in August, so wouldn't make anybody think a whole lot would have changed anyway. So before I turn it over to Mel, I'll go ahead and give our intro one last time. Subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel or visit www.southfloridatribune.com. And to advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be found on iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, you can go to youtube.com. You can subscribe to the South Florida Tribune that way. Also, if you want to email us, contact us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. My Twitter information has been on my screen, but I'll mention it anyways. If you're on Twitter, follow me at Tribune South. With that said, I got my stuff out of the way. We'll turn over to Mel.
Yeah, I can be found on all social media right here at Mel Farr Jr., just like you see right there. And follow what we have going on here in Georgia and also up in Michigan for the kids at melfar.org.
I just want to know when we're getting invited to your house in the Caribbean there.
Soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Do they have the big chicken up there too?
I
Where
saw
I'm
him
at,
drinking KFC cup.
I think out in the Caribbean, no big chicken.
No, I didn't think so. You never know, though, Mel. I could be headed down your direction anywhere. I get road sick after a while when I haven't been on the road for a couple of weeks. All right, Jennifer, you can close it out here.
Thanks. So you can find me on Twitter at Jenna Cheryl. You can find me on Facebook at Jennifer Matthews Lewis. Sorry, had something in my eye. You can find me on Instagram at Jenna Cheryl as well. You can also find me on an array of shows on Sideline Sports. I've also just recently started going to some events, media events, and writing some articles for New Stitched Media for Fago Franklin III. So I just actually published my first article this past week. So yikes, what exciting. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And 3 Chicks in a Pod, Chicks and Salsa, Confidential during the season, Pundit's Pundit on Wednesday nights, obviously here as well on Thursday nights, and Alex Fleming's NFL Carousel during the season, the NBA Carousel, and I produce sometimes during non-football season Basket Bros. So it's just a light schedule, nothing big.
She gets around, and I will say this: Chicks and Salsa and 3 Chicks in a Pod, obviously with Candy Ebling, and I work with Jennifer on Basket Bros as well as the Pundit's Pundit, and we have a great working relationship with Sideline Sports, so it's great. Steve, one of these days I'm going to bring on a Wednesday night so you can see some of the people work with. They are the most first-class operation I've ever seen over there. So meanwhile, folks, that concludes this edition of Inside the Pigskin. On behalf of Steve Balusteri, Mel Farr Jr., Jennifer Lewis, the professional fan. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Man Mouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. Until the next time, folks, be careful out there. Be safe. God bless, and thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you very much. Without you, the show wouldn't be what we work hard to make it to become. So take care, everybody. God bless. We'll catch you on the next episode. Good night, everybody. Enjoy the football and whatever else you have planned. Good night, folks. Bye-bye.